Welcome, everybody. This is Illiterate. My name is Evan.
My name is Taylor. I read a book.
I watched 4 movies. Here we are. We finally made it. I know you guys have been waiting. Audience choice. We are delving into the wizarding world of Harry Potter, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen any of these movies until now. I certainly feel like I missed out on something my whole childhood now. I wish I had done it. I was a bit not for me, you know?
Yeah. Let me run you through some of the stats here, not to make you feel bad about what you missed, but
what did I miss out on? What did I turn my back on?
Here's the deal. As far as the books, more than 500 million copies worldwide for this series, which, if that doesn't make any sense, it is the best-selling book series in history.
You know, no big deal.
Goosebumps is number 2.
Wow.
Around 400 million, but that has over 62 books. Yeah. This one is 7.
Yeah, 7. So, but yeah, so you got, I wonder.
And then in terms of film, it is the 3rd highest grossing film series of all time, beat only by Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, Marvel now has 23 films and Star Wars has 12.
Yeah.
So some other massive situations that this created. Translations. This is also in over 80 languages.
Oh my God.
One of the most recent ones that it was translated to is Ancient Greek, which you'd have to be an Ancient Greek scholar to read. Now, also, it is the longest published work in Ancient Greek since the 3rd century.
Oh my gosh.
So it just claims everything.
And there she is, old JK, putting that star on her board.
Yeah. So for this episode, we're not going to go book by book.
We got more episodes on Harry Potter coming. We're slowing it down here.
This episode specifically will just be focusing on JK Rowling's life, and Evan and I thought that it is something that most people probably don't know about. You people debate and talk about the books.
So
and the themes
somebody like me, never read any of these books, never watched any of these movies. I heard, oh, JK Rowling, she like was totally broke, poor, you know, raising her child on, raising her child on you know, cents and dollars and writing in coffee shops, and she just signed one deal and magically her whole life changed. It's like she is Harry Potter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's kind of the like run-on sentence back story that I think anybody who has heard of this for more than 10 seconds got.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a great opportunity to really tell the story. Really tell the story of where this comes from.
Yeah. There is a type of book which would be the British boarding school book. A coming-of-age story, British kids at boarding school, bullying, sports, adolescence. That was a type of book that this basically emulates. Of course, it expands and extrapolates from there, but that's initially what people assumed this was and what she's going off of. This was not very big after World War II because schools became more co-ed, and at least in England, the boarding school kind of idea was a bit antiquated as we think of it now. But in the time when it was big was the 1850s and thereabouts, so Jane Eyre, David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, even something that we covered before, Louisa May Alcott, if you remember Little Women.
Yeah.
The 3rd book was Little Men, and it's about her running the boys' boarding school.
Right, yeah.
So that was part of this type of thing, but then it faded away, like I said, after World War II. Stephen King, one of the things that she also takes is mystery stories. And so he calls them shrewd mystery tales because they really do follow a good pattern of a mystery story.
Yes. I was talking to Emily while we were watching them and just going like, man, I had no idea that Harry Potter was a detective. Like, seriously, that's what for at least the first 4, it's getting to the bottom of this mystery. Who's setting Harry Potter up? What new game is he going to have to perform for the first time without having seen it? And who's going to have an attempt on his life?
Yeah. And what clues should I have paid attention to? Yeah, very much that's also what she's drawing from. But the biggest the biggest person and influence that you need to know about that she was immediately compared to is Roald Dahl, who is also a British author. Shortly after the launch of The Philosopher's Stone, which is what it's called in England and the rest of the world.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either until I started looking.
Yeah. Shortly after it came out, 7 of the 10 most popular children's books were by Roald Dahl. Really? So, yeah, he's responsible for James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, The Witches, the BFG, Fantastic Mr. Fox, like all of these classic kids' stories, even a little bit with that dark sensibility that she carries on later, where she's not shying away from evil or
No, I saw it starting to get dark.
Yeah.
By the time I end up in that graveyard in part 4, it's starting to get dark.
Yeah. So Roald Dahl is the leader in children's writing post-World War II, especially in Britain. That's what people knew as far as children's works at this time.
Right.
And you can imagine the smaller books, the simpler setting, more
yes,
fairy tale-esque.
Yes.
That people are on. 7 of the top 10 children's books are his.
God.
So now we come to JK. Who is she? What is her life? How did this become a thing?
Yeah, because my angle, I'm looking at the film stuff, and she was so involved from the outset at least for very much so the ones I watched, the first 4. I was going like, wait, she'd never written anything else, and like this came out really quickly after the first book had been.
Yeah.
Like, so how did she become JK Rowling? You know, like because she's walking around like George Lucas.
Yeah.
Basically
this
by the time.
Icon.
Yeah. So that's a particular ascension that I think again is just kind of glazed over in you know, a run-on sentence.
Yeah. So here's the ascension. Keep this in mind throughout this tale. She is one of only 5 self-made female billionaires.
Wow.
She is also the first billion-dollar author.
Wow.
Somebody who wrote and made $1 billion.
Wow.
Recently, Forbes reported that she lost her billionaire status, and that's only because she's given away so much of her earnings to charity. But still, she remains one of the wealthiest people in the entire world, which is insane.
That is staggering.
Yeah.
I lost my billionaire status because I gave away
hundreds of millions
money.
of dollars to charity. So that's where she is now.
Yeah.
Here's how she got there. She was born in Yate, which is a population of around 21,000 on the west side of England. She moved a few times in her life in that area, but still similarly small towns. Her mom was a science technician. Her father was an engineer at Rolls-Royce, working class. Middle income family. She has an older sister named Diane who will factor in later.
Okay.
A little bit more than a year older than her. Growing up was rough just because I was watching an interview. They're saying for these towns, this time and place, everybody's got the same wallpaper because there's only one wallpaper manufacturer. One, you know, your mother has a dress and 3 other women in the town have a dress. It's just like everybody's trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And there's
very
not much
insular, it's small. Yeah.
coming into this town. So she said that if you had to pick something, because people always ask, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, Hermione is probably most likely her based on her upbringing and how she felt as that bookish kid. She's like, I'm not nearly as smart or like presumptuous as Hermione is in the stories. But around this time, so she's in secondary school, age 11, she meets this guy from one of her moves, Sean Harris, who, if you look in the book, Chamber of Secrets, that book is dedicated to him. And he owned the blue flying car, which then the Weasleys have, and like that he had that car that she then puts into the story. And so this is a quote from her. He was the first person with whom I really discussed my serious ambition to be a writer, and he was also the only person who thought I was bound to be a success at it, which meant much more than I ever told him at the time. Because even as a kid, at age 6, she wrote a book and gave it to her mom and was like, well, how does this get published? I wrote a book.
Yeah.
What do you do with this? But this guy, Sean, when she was around 11, was really the only person who she could confide in, like, hey, I want to do this. What's this about?
That I mean, you never know. I mean, it's something I talk a lot about on the show is your impact on people, and you just never know how small some things are and what it means to people.
Yeah. Her favorite author at the time and forever in an interview I saw is Jane Austen. Her favorite book from Jane Austen, Emma. Which we covered.
Go check it out.
Yeah. Her name also is Joanne, and she goes by Jo.
What's the K stand for?
The K we'll get to in when she starts writing. Yeah. So her name is Joanne Rowling, or Jo is what her friends call her. But her mom is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Her father is really tough. At this point, there's some complications. She's pretty coy about her childhood and her life, but obviously things were not going well. Even after, when she becomes successful, her and her father are not on speaking terms. And in an interview, she's like, I won't make amends. Like there are things, and she obviously, interviewers smartly don't press her and she doesn't go into it, but it's like that door has closed.
Yeah.
So even here, there's complications there. She goes to college. Now we're entering her 20s. In 1983, she went to Exeter. not accepted to Oxford, which she said I would have drowned. Like, it's almost good that I went to this smaller, less, prestigious institution. So there she studies French and the classics, not specifically writing in any capacity. Okay. She lived in Paris for a year during this time.
Yeah. To live in Paris for a summer.
And study French. Beautiful. She had odd jobs here after in her 20s. One of them was a researcher and bilingual secretary in London for Amnesty International. So now it's 1990. We get to the start of where Harry Potter fits in with all of this.
Okay. I was confused. I thought the books were later in the 90s, but I saw some things talking about earlier. So this is an area that I was definitely unclear about. It's like, wait, what happened in 10 years?
Yeah. So it starts in 1990. She's 25 years old. She's moving with her boyfriend at the time to Manchester, but she still has this job in London. So she's taking these long 4-hour train rides back and forth. This is where the apocryphal story is that she got the idea for Harry Potter on the train because there was a delay and she had to wait as well.
A lot of trains.
And she has been writing and she had an idea for a novel. And then she just said this idea, which seems sort of strange, but how can you judge somebody for the truth that they're living? She's like, it just came fully formed. I could see this skinny little boy with black hair, a weird scar on his forehead, and I knew instantly that he was a wizard, but he didn't know that yet. Just the character and the idea, and then he has to go to school. So then she said she just basically worked backwards. So he's like, he's a boy who's magic, but he doesn't know. How can he not know? Oh, it's because his parents didn't tell him, and she's just there, no pen, no paper, on the train ride, being like, I have all these ideas, and there's these 4 houses, and here's the thing, and Quidditch, and all this other stuff.
Well, right off the bat, there's something about this that transcends into the films about logic, being able to see the logic through the writing. You can track it. And not all writing is like that. Not all series like that are comparable to this are like that. And I think that's really engaging for an audience, is to be able to look at an item and understand some sort of implied trajectory. There's something there that actually there's a logic to it. There's a real reason why. It's not just there to be there. So that's something I was picking up immediately. And when you're building a world, when you're talking about, okay, well, what if you went to school to be a witch? Okay, well, then it would be like this because of X, Y, and Z. I heard her speak very quickly just about why it's a boarding school. It's like, well, not because she went to boarding school, likes boarding school, pro boarding school. No, it's because, well, if you're teaching children dangerous things that the world really shouldn't and can't know about, you probably need to do it in a place that's really far away, that's really secluded. It's like stuff like that, and you just build one piece on another piece on another piece. That starts to make it really real for your audience when they can track it with you.
And a lot of people are dubious. There's even conspiracy theories, which are insane, about how she's the figurehead and it was some writer's room that cobbled this together and how it all came to be this massive whatever. And it's like, this is a long process. Remember, she started this
I remember being in 4th grade and making my own city plans with the entire class. It's like people can do a lot.
Yeah, she could. It's insane, but it's also phenomenal. And there's only one person who can be the top, and she's at the top. She has the highest grossing movies and books.
You think if there were 10 other people in that room with her, that they would just let her be the one person that gets to dictate and be the spout for all knowledge and truth about this subject? No, you would have leaks. That's absurd.
And in a way, and hopefully when we get to this in other episodes, we'll see that, like, all this stuff she's piecing together from everywhere else in her own life. And it has to come from one person. And you could even argue that she had been writing this book since she was 6 years old, when she didn't know that she even had a chance. So now here she is, 1990, on this train ride, being like, this is it. I've wanted to be a writer. This is the thing. I'm going to put down all this other crap I've been working on and just go for this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, December of 1990, after 10 years with multiple sclerosis, her mom dies. She's only 45 years old. Joe is 25 years old. She doesn't even get to tell her mom that she's been working on this. Her mom doesn't know that this is something that she's been interested in. This idea of Harry Potter, the boy who lived. So obviously, her mother's death in 1990 is the biggest piece of this puzzle, and it inspired her to write Harry now as a boy longing for his dead parents. The anguish becoming much deeper, much more heartfelt. You ask her, what's the theme of this? She always says death. It's always about death and life and parents, and and it became real to her in that character, more so than the earlier drafts before that situation happened.
I see.
So now, 9 months after this, she saw an advertisement where she could go teach English as a foreign language in Portugal. So she moves there. She still is working on these chapters, having this story in play. In Portugal, while she has this job, she meets this guy, Jorge. They marry in 1992, and they have a child, Jessica, in 1993. Again, she doesn't like to talk about this, as well as the parts about her childhood. We can assume that he was abusive. There were issues. It was a bad situation. They're separated 4 months later, and she moves back immediately to Scotland to be with her sister, Diane. She has 3 chapters of Harry Potter in her suitcase. She has nothing. This is what would be the pit of despair. This is the end of 93. Now it's 7 years after she's graduated, and she thinks she's a failure. She has no marriage. She's jobless. She has a kid who is a infant. And she said at this point she even considered suicide, depression, all of that stuff is weighing on her. That's what she said inspired the Dementors, was this particular time in her life where everything is crashing down. All she has is this idea for a book. She said, quote, her economic status was being as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless.
Yeah. That level of just that quality of life. It's more people than you would think. These people almost like live an invisible life because they don't look overtly homeless or in need, but they are desperately in need.
Yeah. She decides, okay, well, I have to do something. I'll get my teaching degree, but that means she has to go back to school to get her certification and degree and whatnot. While she's now applied for welfare, she realizes, and this is where people sort of get her story a bit confused in terms of, okay, well, she was writing to make money, or she knew this was going to be a big break, or she was being selfish by sacrificing, why didn't she just get a job kind of thing? She's got a kid, all of that. She realized, okay, if I'm going to get this job, I'm going to become a full-time teacher. I'll have to grade. I have my kid. I'm still struggling with money. I will never finish this thing. So her impetus was, I'm going to do this as much as I can and get it done, because I know once all these other responsibilities come into play, my life will be over with this and that dream will be lost. So it was extremely difficult, but that was her mentality more so than, oh, this is going to make me rich, or I'm neglecting my child. It's like, if I don't do this now, I'll never get to.
Being real with yourself, not allowing yourself to like walk down the line any further, convince yourself, oh, I'll get around to it. So many people don't have the wherewithal to actually be honest with themselves and lay bare that they have been disillusioning themselves. They have been telling themselves, well, they'll get to it. Meanwhile, they know, well, they're going to go to their job and they've got these responsibilities. It's like, at what point do you have the sobering moment that goes, no, okay, this is how it works. This is how I am. What if this is happening now? Do I have an opportunity? Is this the only time this opportunity is going to come? Being able to identify those moments, being sober and real enough with yourself to know when you've kind of been selling yourself down the road a little short. That's make or break in this story. What I'm seeing is being able to understand, well, I have a window of time, and this might be the only time. Most people wouldn't even give themselves the time of day to think about that. To really, they would just disillusion themselves into going, well, I'll get to it as soon as I can breathe. She's
like, I'm already underwater. Here we go. So she is no longer living with her sister or, helping with her feet off the ground. This guy, Sean, her friend from 11 years old, comes back into the picture and gives her deposit money so that she can have a flat. Which is not a great flat, but she has it.
Something.
Yeah. So now she's here with, and this is where the story comes of her writing in cafes. And it's not, the apocryphal stories is, that her apartment had no heating and she was just trying to survive. It's like, she doesn't want to glamorize this moment in her life, but she was like, no, my baby would fall asleep if we walked for a while and it was a quiet place where I could sit and write and work. So that is what's going on up until 1995, where she finishes the manuscript for the first Harry Potter book. I'm going to post a link to a video, because what also gets lost in this story, along with the rags to riches, this was her troubled life, is there's a video of her explaining her writing this, and maybe people don't realize she was putting it all together. She had written the 7 books, essentially.
Yeah.
She had done everything. So she has boxes and papers of writings and drawings and charts of every person and their family lineages. Like, she had done it all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what, I mean, she's a really good artist too. Like sketching out all the characters.
Really?
It's crazy to see how like people think like, oh, it was between 1990 and when the first book was published, like she continued to be working on this thing.
Yeah.
That was
She's
what she
fleshing it
steeled
out.
herself towards, was the entire concept, everything from book 1 to book 7. She knew it all.
Good Lord.
So now comes the publishing part. The horrors are not over yet. This is also part of the story.
Yeah, okay, she has the material.
Yeah.
Here's part 2.
Yeah. The troubles of publishing.
Yeah.
She tries to get it published. She sends it to an agent. She said the first one sent it back so fast she thought it was like the same day that she sent it. They were like, nope. The second
Not for us.
Yeah.
What? You didn't even just in the mailbox and right back out.
Yeah.
Not for us. Oh.
The second agent, Chris Little, she said it was the best letter she's ever received. Just 2 sentences. Oh, sent the first chapters. He wants to see the rest of the manuscript. So then now hits his job as her agent to get it to the publishers.
Yeah.
Which is a year of him trying to get it to these publishers. 12 rejected it. And the reasons, like we said, it's too long. It doesn't fit in with the children's.
Right.
She didn't even realize or know that she was writing a children's story.
Risque topic, witches.
Yeah, per se. It was like, oh, am I gearing this? It doesn't feel like it's for 9 to 11-year-olds, but I guess that's what we have to sell it as. Again, boarding school stuff, not in fashion.
How do you sell it? Someone's whole life is dedicated to how do we sell this thing?
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Yeah. So the 13th publisher, Bloomsbury, Barry Cunningham is the guy who accepted it. I'll post a link to a video where he talks about it. His 8-year-old daughter, Alice, read the first chapter, and she said she wanted to see more. And so that's why he was like, oh, yeah, let's go for this. My kid.
like Little Women in this piece.
Yeah.
Again, it's so funny because you mentioned it earlier. I feel the connection here, but I mentioned it while we were watching the 4th movie, and they start to kind of get there's more teen, like more sexualities coming into it a bit. And I'm sitting here going, man, I wish I could see Little Women, but with the Harry Potter character. Like I want Little Women, like the coupling up and drama, but just at Hogwarts. And I just want a whole movie that's just that. Where all the magic and all the mystery is just like in the background. It's really about who's gonna be with who.
Well, maybe there's certainly some fan fiction or something.
Oh man, I bet there's boatloads. Don't go looking for it. Don't go.
So now this publisher has agreed to this madness. He haggles with this agent Chris for, he says, like 10 minutes, low sum, £2,500.
God.
Advance for the publication. She is ecstatic. This is insane.
More money than she's ever had.
So she goes over to London to talk to this publisher about it, and she starts talking. She's like, what about sequels? And he's like, well, let's just talk about the first one. Usually children's books, especially with sequels, is just the same characters, different setting kind of thing. Now it's in space, or now it's, not. But then she goes into the whole idea of she's already got
knows.
It's 7 parts.
At
Here's
that
the
point,
thing.
her job is just how do I get them enticed enough into what's going to happen that they want to do it.
These characters are changing. It goes from all the way through till they're 17 years old. It grows with the people.
And she's not making it up in the room. She's been spending the last 5 years figuring that out.
Yeah. Well, he says, let's just get the first book out. And also he says, look, like children's books do not make money, which she also knows. But he's like, you're probably going to have to get a day job as well. She's like, I know.
Yeah.
Like this is, so even at this point, it's still up in the air.
Yeah.
She's just happy to have done it, gotten it done, gotten a publisher, gotten paid £2,500.
It's happening. It's real in some way. Look
Wow.
at that. Yeah. I mean, that to somebody who had nothing, somebody in her predicament, man, she did just win the lottery. I mean, for real. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's £2,500, but that's £2,500 for writing, baby.
Crazy. Yeah. So then immediately after that, she got a grant of £8,000 from the Scottish Arts Council, which she had applied to, which enabled her to then plan the sequels, and she doesn't have to get that teaching job just yet.
There you go.
So that pushes her over to the next part. Here comes the K in her name.
Here we go.
Before they're going to put the book in print, this publisher is like, we've got to have a gender-neutral name. Boys, for whatever reason, are sexist and will not read a book by a woman. If it says Joanne Rowling, they're not going to read it. So what are your initials? She said, well, I don't have a middle name.
Huh.
It's just she doesn't have a middle name. They're like, well, you got to get a middle one.
You got to get one, Joe.
So she uses Kathleen, which was her grandmother's name.
Oh.
So that's where the JK comes from.
Oh, I like that.
So then that becomes her nom de plume.
It's sad but you're telling me the logic of it. I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Well,
Again, it's somebody's whole job to figure out how to sell this thing, and they're thinking about, well, maybe boys don't want to read something by, Jane. Like Joe, Joanne.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can fly under the radar and they never know, who's the wiser.
Yeah. And she regret, people ask like, what would you have changed? What she said, I mean, she had no skin in the game.
Changed now,
no stakes there, but she would not have made that concession.
Yeah.
At that point.
I think the culture has just changed leaps and bounds in 25 years. That in the mid 90s, oh yeah, baby, this is little fires everywhere territory. Yeah, 100%. They're making that business decision. It's like, well,
yeah, a woman writing. Yeah,
we got to get so Jake, get a middle name. JK Rowling.
Yeah.
Make it up. Yeah, make it up.
So now published June 1997. Remember, done in 95.
Gotcha.
A year of trying to figure out how to get it out there.
Gotcha.
The initial print 500 in hardback, and then later in softback. 500.
I wonder what that goes for now. One of those.
Oh, like 30,000. I mean, crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. They got critical praise, but it was interesting because most of it was the Children's Awards by the Children's Choice. There were only a couple that were revered by the adult, like best selection of whatever for kids. But the kids loved it. And it was mostly word of mouth through kids and libraries wanting it because kids were requesting it.
That's cool.
That this became popular.
The Scholastic Book Fair.
Exactly.
Spreading it like wildfire.
So speaking of Scholastic, this is only in England, in the United Kingdom. So now there's this book symposium or whatever, and America wants the rights to it. So Scholastic bought it. She said this was the craziest phone call she's ever gotten. We got news for you. Scholastic wants to buy it for $105,000. I mean, her first one was $2,500.
Yeah.
It also caused a buzz in the publishing world.
That's rights. That's just to have it published in the United States.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's just the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's like, I mean, it created such a sensation, too, because people are like, oh, what is this? Like, why is it worth so much? Clearly, they see the writing on the wall. The buzz is building. The awards are piling up.
I'm kind of interested in how this spread through kids. I mean, really young kids getting into this material and spreading it, being excited about it. And that's just how it grew. I'm trying to think and trying to equate it to, I don't know what books are people.
That's why it was such a sensation because nowadays it's like, oh, if your friend has Snapchat or TikTok or something, you're going to be on that. It's like how kids have some sort of type of shoe that they really want, and then all the kids have the same shoes or whatever is popular at the time. It was so bizarre to people though because it was a 500-page book.
Right, man. And some parents still had a problem with it.
Yeah. So now, part of this American thing, they changed it to the Sorcerer's Stone.
Why?
Philosopher's Stone is an actual artifact that is used to create alchemy. So it was known to the rest of the world, but the American publisher, Scholastic, they were like, Americans would not associate the word philosopher with magic. It has a different connotation.
Yeah, I definitely go right into, more school, more thoughts, and
yeah. And so that's why that choice was made. Again, she was like, I wouldn't have changed it, but
interesting.
What legs did I have to stand on when it came to this thing? They were paying, she didn't have it yet. It didn't sell. They just bought the rights.
Hey, at least that's all just dressing on the outside. It's not really anything about the story. So,
Right.
Here, you got to tell you here and there. I'm like, yeah, some of those concessions are stupid and we wouldn't do those anymore. But on some level, it's like, well, I wonder if you would be treated. I wonder what it would be like today. Unbeknownst to anybody, the same type of material is like on somebody's desk.
Yeah.
How would that go now? Would they be more tearing it apart and trying to get them to change things about actually the material, not just dressing on the outside? Are we going to print her full name?
Yeah.
Those types of things.
Yeah. So part of this business deal, America publishes it a year later, 1998, and now she's outed as a woman. The jig is up, because it sells like wildfire. Yeah, well, that didn't last very long. And obviously nobody cared because the books are great.
Yeah.
So that same year, 1998, she sells the rights to the film for the first 4 Harry Potter books to Warner Brothers.
Okay.
For a reported £1 to £2 million. And this is where some of the question of like, well, how does she have so much sway? And it's because of the insanity of the fact that she already had it figured out.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more than just somebody who's prepared. And when you think that somebody just has this built up in their head when really they've been working on it for like 10 years in their room, like that's impressive. When you're the pitch executive that's listening to this thing and you're being drawn in by something that you feel is not done yet. Really, it is kind of done, you know, like it exists. But it's her job to go into a room with somebody who's never heard of it before and make them think, it can be, it can't, just listen to me. We can do this.
Yeah. And the setups in, you know, book 1, they're going to like, she's got it all. Right. She's figured it all out. So I think that's where when they're like, okay, well, we just have it for the first 4 books. We know the first book is selling insane, breaking world records. The next ones are only going to follow. And she's like, I've already got it. So you have to include her.
Yeah,
you have to include her in the process. I was
kind of baffled by how intrinsically included she was in these first few movies. But I mean, honestly, if I was the filmmaker if I'm Chris Columbus and I'm stepping into making that first movie, I kind of want to be. Please never leave my side, Joe. Please tell me if I am getting hot here. Like is this correct?
I mean, if he does take creative liberties and change something, it can't be different from what's going to happen in book 6. Right. Because it hasn't come out yet.
It's amazing to me, and I haven't finished the series, but it seems that they're not deviating wildly.
No.
Which is kind of impressive on its own right. It's that, but I think this is all down to her really being heavily involved from the outset.
Yeah.
Getting their feet on the ground and establishing the world and getting everybody on the same page, then seeing that nobody was going to run away with it and change it, and then allowing herself to kind of step back towards the back end of it.
Like you said, she was assisting heavily in the writing process, ensuring the scripts didn't contradict the books for the future, and making sure that the actors knew what they needed to know at certain points. She would, you know, there are certain characters that she would have to tell, which I won't spoil it for you, but she would have to tell them, hey, this is going to happen in 3 movies. So
I heard that there were some that like didn't want to know that like they like ran away from her.
Am I going to die or not? Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. But 2 of the big things that she had fought for that were important to her was that the cast was British, or at least mostly British, Scottish, you know, of that, and that it was filmed in Britain. Yeah. And those were non-negotiable. Yeah. Because it doesn't get turned into some Hollywood nonsense.
Right. That's just opening the door to get shut out.
What's crazy to think about the film series is by the time the movie comes out, because remember, the first one was published in Britain in 97, everyone had already read the book.
Right.
It's not like Lord of the Rings, which people had read, but the movies really catalyzed and created.
This was hot, and then a movie came out while the iron was hot.
And a lot of, and it was bestseller. It's like a lot of these things that we see now, that especially even ones that we're covering, it's like Ford versus Ferrari was nobody knew it was a book.
Right.
And even still, you wouldn't go back and read it, and the book was mildly or reasonably successful. It's not like every kid in 200 countries is reading this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now the movie is coming out.
Yeah, this was a phenomena that somehow timing-wise was able to get it all together and going and have a movie adaptation, a massive movie adaptation come out in the height of it. I mean, how many books are out by the time the first movie actually does come out?
So it was 4 books that had already come out.
So, yeah, you're halfway into the biggest publication of all time. Now the first movie is coming out. That timing, I mean, that seems like stars aligning, honestly, to be able to get it done that quick. I mean, we're talking from 97, 98 to 2001. And by 2001, put on screen a world so big that it rivals Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
And there was even questions of like, how are we going to do the Quidditch matches?
Yeah.
How are we going to do the generated effects?
Okay, we're going to make the movie. It's like now these movies and the sequences and set pieces that are involved in them, these are groundbreaking sequences that we're talking about. If you're really talking about bringing this to life the way you see it in your head, JK, this is cutting edge state of the art stuff. The needle will be pushed by these movies. That's what happened.
Yeah.
The needle was pushed by these movies. And I was seeing that.
And a series that's 7 long that continues
Yeah.
the story. Like, what else is like that?
And then they add on top of it, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but they add on top of it an aging cast. A cast that's already aging out of the ages they need them right now. We got to film these back to back to back, baby. I mean, it's staggering to think that they were able to get it going, to get that machine up.
Well, I'm
and
sure
running.
we'll get into how all of the films
I can't wait.
Another episode.
Yeah.
But just tying up this part where now her life is forever changed.
Yeah.
And she described it. She's like a one-woman Beatle, like the Beatles.
Yeah.
The exact same year the movie comes out, 2001, she remarries this guy, Neil Murray, who is a Scottish doctor, private ceremony. Don't know how they met, but they had 2 kids now and they're still married. So great that she thought at this point, she's like, I won't marry again. You know, like, how am I going to find somebody at this point?
I'm glad that she did. I mean, once your life changes like that, I mean, I can only imagine, but if you're going through that alone, it must be hard to feel like you're actually finding a partner who sees you for who you are and not sees you for who everybody else sees you to be, you know, who everybody else thinks you are. So that's amazing that she was able to she was able to actually traverse that. In the midst of this otherworldly explosion. I mean, this just does not happen down the street. You know, we're not just waiting on our clocks for this to happen to you or me. You know, like this is a wild ride that only so many people on the face of the planet are privileged enough to be able to go on.
Yeah.
My God.
And in terms of writing this story, the last Harry Potter book came out in 2007. So from 1990, when she had the idea on the train, to 2007, 17 years. Yeah, she had been going through this,
working with the same characters.
Yeah,
that's a lot to feel like your whole life has changed because you have made this, but ultimately, it is just you and talking and her as a creator talking with them with these people as if they are real. Because they are in some way. I mean, it's touching on almost the cusp of real creation is like, is Harry Potter real? You know, all those types of things, like for real. If just putting yourself in her shoes, he must feel really real.
Yeah. I want to post, there's a beautiful interview that she did with Oprah after all of this was over, all the madness of all of this. And she didn't do a lot of interviews speaking as candidly as she did, but 2 of the real people that she said most influenced her, I've never heard of. Jessica Mitford, she said, was a heroine of hers since she was 14 years old. Her great aunt was discussing her, how this lady had ran away at the age of 19 to fight in the Spanish Civil War, and then she was an investigative journalist, and that's why...
A renegade.
Yeah, that's why JK Rowling's daughter is named Jessica.
Wow.
Is because of this woman, and that's who inspired her as a woman. And then she was saying that her biggest regret, another real person, was that her mom couldn't see it. Her mom has no idea that any of this
ever happened,
came from it. But she said the biggest irony is the books wouldn't be what they are if she hadn't died. Her death is on every other page. Yeah. And what a crazy understanding and awareness that she has of, like, this was sort of my mother's gift as well. Yeah. Because she never saw it, but without her, I would never have understood any of this stuff. It wouldn't be what my life was made for. Yeah. In a way.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've been following along with us, as we've been looking at other authors and the stories that they create, and I'm just consistently awe-inspired by these people who traverse some sort of hardship. I mean, all of them do. We all do. But are able to comport that into something beautiful. I mean, look what this gave her. I mean, this is beautiful, insane, otherworldly. I mean, it is alien-like what she just willed into existence because of the death of her mother, because of missing somebody, because of just the love you have for another human being and the absence you feel in the wake of their death.
And kids had asked her, I'll post some links to some old interviews as well, where people didn't know what was going to happen. And kids would call in on radio shows and everything and be like, hey, is he going to get his parents back? And she had to be like, no, because there's, with magic and all this stuff, there's some things that just like, that's life. And that's what it's like, she's teaching things about good and evil and life and death.
It's beautiful. Even with all this magic, you feel ultimately powerful. There's no end to it, but these themes are sticking out at me, man, watching these movies. And I really cannot wait to keep going because, I mean, based on what I've heard here, I mean.
What's also crazy, just to round out her life here and where she is now, she, like we said, 17 years from start to finish with this thing. Obviously, it carries on furthermore, and there are amusement parks that she's involved with creating. Like, she's never going to be done with this. But in the interview with Oprah, it was like, hey, do you feel like there's so much pressure to do anything more? What are you going to do now? And she was like, it was a spectacle. It was a phenomenon. But she had watched this documentary about Michael Jackson and Thriller and everybody doing the dance and all that stuff. And like, he was cursed with trying to replicate that or do it again. And she was like, I will never do anything.
Do that.
I will never do it again.
Yeah.
I was
immeasurably that maybe you caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And the feeling, I mean, ultimately going back to the mom stuff is you just can't drudge that up again about somebody else and some other thing. She felt it about that. You can't just force the winds of your life to create something to write about, you know, to give you the inspiration, you know, you've got to find it with what you have.
Yeah. One of my favorite.
And that's what she had, you know, that's what happened. And that was lightning in the bottle. I mean, so smart of her to know, like, well, I mean, I'm probably never going to write another worldwide phenomena again. So that would be insane for you to expect that of me.
Of all time. Like, how can I beat my own thing of all time?
It's like, let's demystify the creator here and go like, hey, sometimes you just get it right, and sometimes you can't recreate it. Sometimes it's that crazy.
There should be no expectation.
Right.
What I love about her, I don't know if you knew about this. So in April of 2013, there was a book that came out called The Cuckoo's Calling. It was the debut novel of Robert Galbraith, who on the back of the book is a former plainclothes police investigator who left work in 2003 to be in the private security industry. There's no such person. It's her. She wrote a crime detective novel under a man's name.
Oh my gosh.
And a fake biography. Sold 500 copies in hardback, just like the original Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Was reasonably acclaimed, didn't win any major awards or anything. But a journalist who caught wise that this was the same agent and the same publishing company and all of this stuff did a language analysis, and then the publisher had to come clean and be like, oh, yeah, it was JK. Within days of her being revealed as the author, they had to print another 140,000 copies.
Oh my God.
For the demand. Of course, it's not. I mean, it's sexual and body. Like, there's nothing related to her. But it was. I just love the fact that she did that again because she didn't want to rest on the laurels. Also, of like, oh, I know it's going to have my name on it, and people are just going to buy it because it's got my name on it, and not tell me whether it's good or not.
Right. Right.
Let me publish something under a pseudonym, and then she published in the past.
That's an awesome experiment.
In the past years, she's published 4 more books in that series. But it's like, nobody cares about that. I mean, who is talking?
Is she creating fake personas for each of them?
No. It's the same. It's the same fake author.
I see. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, got you. Okay. I was for a second, I thought she was just like, I'm gonna see what this one does. You know, like put out a fake name on this one. See if that one catches fire.
No, she just did it, and she's like, Robert Galbraith has written 4 books, and it's under the same thing, and it's about the same character and whatnot. But it's just great that she was like, yeah, that's the only way I can do it without having the judgment or keep the humility of myself to be like, maybe it isn't good again, or it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So that's what she's been working on.
Giving herself the own freedom, and honestly, I feel like that would give you a ton of clarity.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the practical use and the function and what she did there. It's like, okay, put out the side that she wrote a whole other story. But to think about, okay, it would offer so much clarity of just thinking, okay, well, how much of this is me? And then how much is just the momentum of the craziness after the first thing? It would be wild. And that's I've never heard of something quite like that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful end to be like, oh, well, she hasn't gone to drugs or gotten obsessed with the fame or been, drowned by the wealth or whatever. Yeah. She's just back to doing what she did before.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been crazy. So this is the first episode on Harry Potter and
the woman behind it all.
Yes, the woman behind it all, JK Rowling. We'll be doing another episode on Harry Potter, not next week, but the week after. We're going to be doing a couple of these to span out into going into the summer here. So get on the Instagram with us and get in the conversation. We can start talking about the Harry Potter lore. Let's open up the stuff and we can figure out where exactly we're going to put this looking glass next. One thing I just wanted to mention in recent news is that the Watchmen HBO series has forced the Oklahoma curriculum to change, because apparently, if you haven't seen, much of the new Watchmen series is a sequel to the original Watchmen comic, centers around this 1921 race riot in Oklahoma. Apparently, a lot of the people in Oklahoma didn't know about this, so the school board has actually reinstituted this into the curriculum, is forcing the curriculum to change. I thought that was insane that a series sequel
adapted from a graphic novel from the 80s changed a school's curriculum.
Changed a school's curriculum, and that the people in that town were unfamiliar with their own history. I just thought that was beautiful and just about, I just wanted to bring that up for viewers since we've done a Watchmen episode and we do touch on Watchmen time and time ago. And things like this actually do push and shove in the real world here. Now students are going to be learning about the Oklahoma 1921 race riots. Thought that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that is wild.
But yeah, that's it for us. Get in touch with us at IlliteratePod on Instagram. Let us know what you thought about this episode and where we're going with Harry Potter. And we will catch you next week. Next week, I think we're doing Bad Education on HBO. So keep your eyes out for that one.
Ooh. All right. Catch you all later.